I've been part of a team that's gone on to win 3 in a row. It's crazy, really, and you kind of forget about it sometimes.
Like all the guys that I played with growing up through the years, like we're all still friends and everything. So it really is like it's a good family sense and a good community sense.
We had won in All Ireland in 97, 99, 2000. It's more local at your club. You know everyone, you know the setup. It's different than joining a county panel.
It was nearly like a kind of statement to say, we're here, we're ready to play. No one's going to push us over this year.
This podcast is sponsored by Declan Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star is a children's GAA book written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club. The book is a very good read for any parents who are looking to get their children involved in Gaelic games. The book is available in Easons, Lidl and all good bookshops. It's also available to download on Amazon, so make sure to go and check it out. They're very good supporters of the channel and the page, so you'd certainly be doing me a good favour as well if you went ahead and checked the book out. So I do very much appreciate it. The link is in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. Okay, welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I hope everyone is keeping wonderfully well. I'm delighted to have Matthew Hurley from the GAA Statsman Podcast once again here with me today. We're going to be previewing the Cork football and hurling final. We're going to be discussing the hurling final today and then the football final. We're going to be recording that as well, but that'll be out a little bit later next week. I suppose, first of all, Matthew, how are you keeping? Are you enjoying all the club action at the minute? We were chatting off camera there. I mean, I suppose there's so much to keep up with in both hurling and football. And I'm sure the Cork Football and Hurling Championship probably hasn't disappointed a lot like much other of the championships all across the country.
Yeah, absolutely, Aaron. Thanks for having me on again on your YouTube channel. I suppose the hurling football in Cork's been absolutely unbelievable. Like, there's been various stories across the club championship as well, not just in Cork. You look at the Mayo goalkeeper coming on and saving a penalty at the very death. In Dublin, in the hurling, Rowan Hayes hitting that late goal. And in the football, as well, as we recorded this yesterday, John Kearns, the St. Finbarr's goalkeeper, saves a penalty in the shootout and then actually takes a penalty and slams it into the top corner. Like, it's absolute fairy tale stuff. And even Corfin and Crossmaglen both losing on the same day. Like, the surprises pulled off as well. Mohill losing at Leitrim, and that Leitrim final I thought was absolutely incredible as well. Watched a good few club games. Obviously, you can't watch them all because there's absolutely there's no chance you could watch them all. But geez, there's been brilliant club action throughout the country, not just in Cork. And I suppose in Kerry as well, East Kerry losing in football. Like, in every county, the club championship's been absolutely unbelievable. And I'm glad that RT and TG Carr are showing more of the club action because it definitely deserves recognition. It's a brilliant championship, and the Cork championships in hurling and football haven't disappointed either.
Yeah, no, I completely agree as well. Like, I think like sometimes when you're watching one group of games and you're seeing what's happening there, and then you hear what's happened in another game. I was a bit like that when I seen your Instagram post about St. Finbarr's and Castlehaven and the football. Like, you're trying to keep up to date with all these good games, and then you've got another brilliant game just popping up out of nowhere. Like, you can't really keep up with all of it. Like,
exactly, that's the thing. Like, I was doing stats yesterday on Douglas and Clonakilty, and then I've seen the What's the Score app. It's a very good app to keep club results. That's very handy at this time of year. And I was checking the Corfin Mount Belly Moylock results, and I was shocked. I know about Belly Moylock beat them last year, but you would have expected Corfin to actually come back into it and come back and win the Galway title. And then another result pops up, Crossmaglen losing in Armagh. And apparently, according to Armagh fans, that was an incredible comeback by Clonairon. So it's been absolutely outstanding. I suppose on Saturday there was one game, the Dublin hurling, that probably helped, but on Sunday it was absolutely hectic. Everything and anything happening that day. And even the game I was watching, Clonakilty getting to their first football final since 2009. And obviously, I live near Clonakilty. I know a lot of the players, so I'm absolutely delighted for them. But heartbreak for Douglas, obviously. They've never won a county title, and they thought they'd do it this year. Another story, they beat Nemo Rangers, their rivals, to knock them out of the Cork Championship. So, and now they're out as well. So, look, the club entertainment doesn't stop. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's brilliant in every count, and hopefully there's more to come in the next few weeks.
100%. I suppose we'll focus on the hurling final first of all, and then we'll get onto the football final a little bit later. Middleton and Glen Rovers, how are you feeling about this one? I suppose two sides that have been thereabouts over the last couple of years, and obviously Glen Rovers with the likes of Patrick Horgan in the ranks, they're always going to be a team, I suppose, that catches most people attention, not just in the county.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny about Glen Rovers because here at Cork, they are a one-man team, Patrick Horgan. I know a lot of people would say, look, it's deluded talk. There's surely other players stepping up, but the facts of the matter is Patrick Horgan has scored 544 of the Glen Rovers scores, which is a total of 679. He scored 5 of the 6 goals that the Glen have scored. I suppose the only one that comes a small bit remotely close, even above 10 points, is D. Broslin with 1-7. So that just tells you the Glen rely heavily on Patrick Horgan. And I suppose when he got a red card against Ebo Kelly in that quarter-final, the Glen Rovers fans would probably have had heart attacks knowing that he'd be suspended for the game against Stars. But, he pulled through. He got his suspension overturned and he played against Stars, and he scored 111 of the Glen's 117. He was on fire that day. It was absolutely incredible. And me disappointed as a Stars fan that day. Like, I have family from Stars, so I was supporting them. But, geez, you have to admire Patrick Horgan. He was absolutely outstanding that day. And I suppose if the red card didn't get rescinded, I don't think the Glen would be in this position. I thought Stars would have been in the final if Glen didn't get Patrick Horgan back into it. But you know what? They did, and fair play to them and fair play to Patrick Horgan. Like, the scoring record, and as he gets older, he seems to get better as well. Like, usually, I suppose in the last minute of the game, he took a free just inside the 65-metre line. It wasn't central or anything, it was right at the sideline. And usually the past, like I remember 2014, 2010, against SARS coincidentally, Patrick Horgan would have missed them kind of frees. But this Patrick Horgan, he wasn't going to miss that. And that was the point to put the Glen 1 point ahead, and then he gets the second point to put them 2 points ahead towards the end, and Stars didn't come back from that after all. So, look, I think he gets better when he's as he gets older. Maybe he's like Ronaldo in soccer. Like, he's just that type of player. He's absolutely incredible. But yeah, the Glen, it's a one-man team, one-man show. Patrick Horgan is the main man, but it'll be a tough assignment. Who will Middleton put on him? It remains to be seen.
Yeah, I seen that goal he scored as well in the semi-final against Stars. I mean, that was an incredible goal, and I think the commentary team nearly sounded like they were going to lose their life when that goal went in, like, because it was an incredible finish altogether. Like, and like what you said as well, like, he's had an unbelievable year for Cork, and he just seems to be getting better and better. And you kind of, he's the one player that I think for most people would love to see him win an All-Ireland with Cork, or maybe even win an All-Ireland Club Championship with Glen Rovers, something to that effect, because he seems to give so much for Cork and for his club. And like what you said, maybe in the past, people would have looked at him as a one-man team with Cork, but I don't think people can really say that anymore, given how well Cork performed this year. But I suppose with Glen Rovers, maybe that's the case as well, and it probably shows just how good he is, really.
It does, absolutely. And I suppose I was a bit surprised that some of the Glen players haven't stepped up. Well, they did step up to some extent in the semi-final versus Stars, the likes of Simon Kennefick, who performed very well, won the first game since lockdown against Bars, was shown on RT last year, and he was absolutely incredible in that game. He would have expected him to show up trumps this season, but he's only scored 6 points so far. That's a bit disappointing from his standards, but as long as Patrick Horgan is still scoring for them, they're going to win games. It's as simple as that. And it's interesting, actually, they lost the opening game to Douglas. They got absolutely slaughtered in that game, and you would have thought, is Patrick Horgan going to pull out of the bag? Is he going to win another club title with Glen Rovers? But in fairness to them, they recovered slowly but surely. They weren't hammering teams out the gap or anything. A bit like Stars did in the group stage. They were hammering the likes of Middleton. Coincidentally, Middleton actually got into the final, and Stars beat them by 10 points or over. So that's absolutely incredible in that way. But you look at Stars and the Glen, the comparison there. The Glen, they beat Bishopstown, they beat Newtown Chandron by 1 point. They beat Ebo Kelly by 1 point, and they beat Stars by 2. So they weren't shooting the lights out particularly in those type of games. And Stars were, other club teams were. Arizona, another example, that were performing well in the early stages. but the Glen just did enough. They did enough in games. They got over the line. They relied on Patrick Horgan, and it's come up trump for them. They're in the final. But I suppose the other team, Middleton, their forwards have been absolutely incredible. We'll get on to them later. But as I said already, Middleton need to stop Patrick Horgan. If they don't do that, they could be in serious trouble in this game.
Yeah, because it was close versus Sars as well, wasn't it, going down the home stretch? Like, there was only a couple of points in it. And I suppose for Glen Rovers in particular, like, they might look back and consider themselves to be a little bit lucky to be in this final because, like you said, Patrick Horgan could have been suspended and the game could have been completely different. So I suppose in some ways it's nearly a bonus for them getting to this final because it looked very close going down that home stretch. I mean, from what I could see from the highlights anyway, it looked like Stars were winning that game for the majority of it.
They were, yeah, but look at Stars down through the years. Usually when Stars beat the Glen, it's usually a hammering. Like the last time Stars beat the Glen was 2014. I think the scoreline was close to 20 points and Hoggy didn't get a look in that day. I think Conor O'Sullivan might have been on him that day, but look, Stars and the Glen, if it's between those two sides, Stars don't win close games. If it's in the melting pot, I think the Glen have the nose to get over the line. And it's not just Patrick Horgan. There's the defenders as well, two in particular, Robert Downey, who was impressive for Cork this season, and Stephen McDonald, who was with Cork for years. He's now retired with Intercounty. So they were street smart, the Glen. They were definitely street smart. And Stars just couldn't live with it. I suppose Jack O'Connor did in the first half, but the Glen nullified that threat in the second half, and he only scored 1 point. He scored 4 in the first half. It was like the Jack O'Connor, Patrick Horgan show in the first half. So the Glen nullified Jack O'Connor. Stars didn't do so with Patrick Horgan. And ultimately, that was the difference in the second half. And Stars have to rule those missed chances. It's a bit of deja vu for Stars as well. Like, Stars did well early on the year 2020 and they lose their zone in the quarterfinals. So, look, when it's in the melting pot for Stars, when everything's on the line, there's question marks about them. It's a bit like Donegal in football. They look so good at the start and then they fade out once quarterfinal, semi-final time come into action. So it's something that Stars need to fix pretty quick. But the Glen, look, hold my hands up. The Glen were absolutely superb in that game. Not just Patrick Horgan in attack, but the defence as well. They were tactically smart and they got over the line in the end.
Yeah, and I suppose for Glen Rovers as well, like, fair enough, Patrick Horgan is probably the player that most people comes to mind, but who else could you look at that maybe might step up in this final or might show up in this final, and what other strengths could you see in this Glen Rovers team?
Obviously in attack, you can't look past Patrick Horgan. Like, his scoring record, as I mentioned already, unbelievable. But defensively, as I mentioned as well, Robert Downey, Stephen McDonald, they'll be the two main stalwarts in that Glen Rovers team. And Robert Downey's still a young player. Like, he's an unbelievable player. I thought he might have deserved maybe an All-Star, maybe I'm being biased as a Cork fan, but I thought he was definitely up there for an All-Star, especially after that performance against Kilkenny. And he's shown that form, the club championship. He's been absolutely superb. Dee Brosnan, other than Patrick Horgan, if you're looking to score, he's probably the man for the Glen. Hoggy, of course, won 7 so far all from play. Simon Kennefick with 6 points, but he scored, I think, 4 against Ebo Kelly, and he scored 1 against Stars or something like that. He's definitely coming into play. He scored 1 point before the quarterfinals came into play. Others, you look at Liam Coughlin, Conor Doris as well, Luke Horgan, who was part of the under-20 minors team. So there are players there, but obviously Patrick Horgan is the main player and Middleton need to stop him at source. If they don't do that, they could be in trouble, as I've said. But Dee Brosnan and Simon Kennefick need to have a good game as well if the Glen are going to win this final. Like, because as good as Hoggy is, like, he's only human. He will make mistakes, and it's up to the Glen players around him to, you know, pick up the pieces when things go wrong, the likes of Brosnan and the likes of Kennefick.
Who would be the favourites then between these two? Like, I mean, I suppose, like, looking at it from an outsider point of view, you'd probably have Glen Rovers maybe as the favourites with Patrick Horgan, but I suppose Middleton beat the county champions and it looked like they beat them quite comfortably. So, I mean, like, it could be wide open, really.
I suppose the odds would say Glen Rovers. I haven't looked at the odds now, but I think Glen Rovers, because of Hoggy's influence, would be the favourites. But in my eyes, I think Middleton would be the favourites in this game, simply because they have better attackers in the team. You look at their scoring records. Conor Lehan, remember him? he was kicked off the Cork team at the start of 2020. He scored 42 points so far, with 25 of them coming from place ball. So he scored a lot from play. Maybe it's time for Kieran Kingston to get him back into the team. Luke O'Farrell, another former Cork player, he scored 413 in the championship. He's done absolutely outstanding. And this lad, he wasn't talked about ever really in the Cork Hurling fold. Cormac Bosang, he scored 116 in the championship so far. He's 24 years of age. Like, he's mid-20s and he hasn't been talked about for Cork underage teams or seniors either. So that is absolutely unbelievable there. Like, how it's only taken the club championship to notice this guy, I don't know. Like, he runs directly at the fences. He terrorised Blackrock all day in the semi-final. And look, Middleton will run from all angles. You look at Luke O'Farrell, Cormac Bosang, Paul Hockley from midfield, Sam Quirk, an under 20 player as well, Dylan Quirk, and Tommy O'Connell from centre back is a huge influence on the team. He was in the under 20 team as well. So Middleton definitely have the players all over the field to trouble the Glen. And for that reason, I'd actually have Middleton as favourites. And I suppose I thought the Glen actually beat a better team in Stars. Maybe the Rockies kind of got lucky last year in 2020. Maybe they handled COVID better. Like, even before they won the county championship, they didn't have Cork County players. I suppose only Alan Connolly would be remotely close, possibly Niall Cashman as well, but that's about it. So I suppose the Glen beat a better team in Stars, but Middleton, by the looks of them in the semi-final, the looks of them so far in the championship, looking at their scores of the team and their central players, the likes of Tommy O'Connell, Sam Quirk, Dylan Quirk, and Paul Hockley, they definitely have a chance against the Glen, and I'd put them as favourites.
Yeah, I suppose, like, looking at Glen Rovers, they probably have the better player in Patrick Horgan. Like, they probably have the star player. But Blackrock, like you said before, look like a very good club team. They have a lot of players there that probably could play for the county, but it's almost like a lot of great club teams and a lot of counties where you have 3, 4, 5 players that could play for the county, that you expect to play for the county, but for whatever reason don't play for the county and always seem to perform well with the club. And that seems to be the case for Middleton on this occasion, I suppose, with their victory over Blackrock. Like, a really, really strong performance. And I think they scored 4 goals in the end. So I suppose they're coming into this with a lot of confidence.
They are definitely coming in with loads of confidence. And looking at the goals they've got in the team, like, the amount of goal scorers in this team throughout the championship: Pa White, Ross O'Regan, Dylan Quirk, Luke O'Farrell scored 4 of Middleton's goals so far. Cormac Bosang, who's been electric in this championship, he's been absolutely unbelievable. So Middleton definitely have the goal threat in this team from all angles of the pitch. Whereas Glen Rovers, 5 of their 6 goals have come from one man, and that's exactly it. Like, the Glen have the one player, Patrick Horgan. Middleton have a team collective. Like, you look at every position in that Middleton team, and you would say county winner standard, because you look at it all over the pitch, defensively and attack. It's not just one player. It's not even 2. You would have thought Luke O'Farrell and Conor Leahan would have been the main players over the last few years. But you look at Cormac Bosang, you look at Dylan Quirk, you look at Sam Quirk. They have some very good players all over the field. And I'd have Middleton as favourites. I don't know about any other Cork fan. They probably have the Glen as favourites, or definitely people outside the county would have the Glen as favourites because of obviously Patrick Horgan. But I'd have Middleton as favourites without a doubt. You look at their players all over the field and their performances in the championship so far. And what's incredible as well, I mentioned this already, but Stars beat Middleton by about 10 points. And now Stars are out of the championship. Middleton go in as my favourites for the hurling championship final. So it's amazing how better a team gets as the championship goes on. The Glen, you could say as well, as I said, they lost their opening game to Douglas. They eased into the championship. And that's incredible as well. I suppose it's like that in every other county as well. It's incredible that way, that a team looks so good at the start of the championship and then they're out at the quarterfinals, semi-finals. But the smart teams would leave their best performances towards the end of the championship, not to peak too early and then strike once the semi-finals and the finals begin. And Middleton and the Glen definitely deserve praise for that.
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit like the Limerick hurlers in the league, like nowhere near their absolute best, and a few I suppose, like underwhelming performances here and there. And then as soon as the championship comes around, they just click into gear and get better game on game. And I suppose maybe that's something similar in this case for Middleton. Like, I was having a look back there, 2013, the last time since they won the Cork Senior Hurling Championship. So, like, have they kind of been building? Have they had any underage success around like that? Have they kind of been on this path towards eventually maybe winning a Cork Hurling title, or is this kind of just come out of nowhere and a bit of a flash in the pan, maybe, like you said, like they lost it by 10 points earlier in the championship, or is this something they've always been building towards?
You look at the age profile in that Middleton team, and you would assume that they've been building towards this. You look at Tommy O'Connell, for example, he's in the Cork under 20 teams, the two Corks, Dylan and Sam. Cormac Boasang is a player that wasn't talked about in Cork underage, and he's burst into life. So I suppose from the outset, a lot of Cork fans would have thought the favourites would have been the Glen, Ebo Kelly, despite the fact that most of their players are out senior, they can't play for the Ebo Kelly team. And they aren't as strong as they were. Only Seamus Harney, I suppose, because he's playing for a junior club, as it happens with St. Eata's. So he would have been their main player. SARS have the tradition over the last few years. People would have thought that they challenged the Rockies after their win in 2020. You would have thought they challenged, and maybe even St. Finbarrs. You look at their young players of the team, the Catalans, obviously, and you look at Ben Cunningham, the Tubies. They have some very good players as well in that team. So I suppose you would have looked at the Bars, SARS, Glen Rovers, and possibly Ebo Kelly, and maybe Blackrock. So, and then Middleton sixth. So, but that's for the outset of the championship. That's before people found out about how good Cormac Boasang, for example, is. Once he clicks into gear. But to answer your question, look at the young players in that team. You would assume that they are building towards this. Like, why else would you build up these young players to become absolute brilliant hurlers?
Yeah. And I suppose as well, like looking at Middleton, I mean, is there, like, what are their main weaknesses then in that case? Like, we spoke a good bit about their strengths, I suppose, in terms of getting forward, in terms of their direct running and their goals. But is there many weaknesses in that team? Could it be inexperience maybe, or am I reaching a bit there?
You could possibly be right there. Inexperience could be a main thing. Like the final in Cork would be a main challenge for the likes of Tommy O'Connell, who was in under 20 last year, and the Corks in Dylan and Sam. So maybe it will be a step up for them. But if they step up to this challenge, they could step up to anything, in my opinion. And possibly defensively might be an issue. Like, they could see the 3 goals against Blackrock in the last game. Like, one particular, Noel Cashman, the wing back for the Rockies, ran straight through the defence. Like, there was gaps appearing. I suppose the Middleton team were actually hammering them at that point, but still, that's a bit of a worry if you're allowing a wing back just to solo right through the heart of your defence, cut inside and finish to the back of the net. Like, that's a bit of a concern for Middleton that way. But I suppose the Middleton management team would need to improve on that before the Glen game, because imagine if that was Patrick Horgan running through on goal instead of most of the Blackrock players. And they had their fair share of goal chances towards the end of that game when they were chasing the game as well. So if Patrick Horgan gets them goal chances, it's in the back of the net. And you can't lose concentration either towards the end. Like, look at the Dublin final, the Fina and Kilmacud Crokes. Like, the Fina took their foot off the pedal a small bit in the last 10 minutes, and then the goals went flying in for Kilmacud Crokes. So you have to be careful that way. And when there's a player like Patrick Horgan lurking, or Dee Brosnan if he hits form, or even Simon Kennefick, you could be in trouble. So defensively probably is a main issue, but they need to resolve that before the final.
Yeah, and I suppose, what's your prediction then? Who are you going for if you were to put your neck on the line, I suppose, and call this one? Who would you be going for?
I'd probably go for Middleton, because they definitely have the talent all over the field. Like the Glen, but it's strange. Like, I was chatting to my dad coming out of the game, and I was saying, look, it's Middleton's final. Like, I wasn't really impressed by the Glen, other than hockey, of course, against SARS. But then he was saying, wait a minute, no, the Glen, they're street smart. They will get in your face, and they know how to win games. They've done so over the last few years. They've won the county title more recently, the Middleton. Obviously, they were in the final last year, so the hunger will be there after that defeat against Blackrock. So it's a tight one to call, but I'd probably go Middleton just about, because the players they have all over the field. But do not write off the Glen. I know people will be pointing towards Patrick Horgan, but their tenacity cannot be overlooked. And this will be ding dong of a battle. It'll be an unbelievable game. I won't be surprised if this goes to extra time or penalties, in all honesty. Like you've seen with St. Finbarrs and Castlehaven, for example, if there's two tight teams in it to the bitter end, this could go anyway. And I'd go Middleton after extra time by about 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, I suppose I suppose an argument with Glen Rovers is that fair enough. Like Patrick Horgan might be their main player and they might be a bit of a one-man team, but maybe if they can get an extra 10 to 15 to 20% of some of the other players, like it feels like they have a couple of levels to go up on, like they have a couple of levels to improve on, whereas Middleton probably have their settled team, settled players. You probably know what you're going to get. You know who's going to perform. You know who's going to be the shooters and whatnot. But for Glen Rovers, it feels like they might have an extra 10, 15, 20% to go up on that might just be able to, I suppose, pull them through and get them over the line.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like I suppose that goes back to our point earlier about peaking too early. Maybe it's the case for Middleton just blitzing Blackrock out of the water for the semi-finals, while the Glen just did enough against Sars. They weren't flashy whatsoever. They just got the job done. They were tenacious in the tackle, and obviously they have the star front of Patrick Horgan. And I suppose looking at their score so far, Simon Kennefic definitely has gears to go up on. We've seen his performances last year in the 2020 championship, his final performance against Blackrock. And I was on a live after that game with Patrick Sharkey from GAA Zone, and I was saying there's a chance he'd get in the Cork team. Like, what we think now, like, he wasn't putting up them performances for the crack last year. He just wanted to be on that Cork team, and it just shows the amount of levels he could go up on. Dean Brosnan the same. So the Glen definitely, as you say, have a few gears to go up on. Middleton, maybe they might peak too early, but still stick to Middleton because of the players, the talent they have all over the field. And I think Tommy O'Connell would be the kind of guy at centre back would be instrumental in this final. I think he could have a final where people will stand up and notice. I think this is one of the best centre backs in Ireland at the moment, coming up through the ranks, and he will put his name in the ranks for Kieran Kingston to pick his team next summer. So look, it should be an interesting final. There's some good arguments made by yourself about the Glen, but I'd have to back Middleton because of the players they have all over the field.
Yeah, and I suppose whoever comes through this game obviously goes into the Munster Club Hurling Championship. They'll actually play Kilmallock. How would you see whoever does come through this, whether it is Glen Rovers or whether it is Middleton, how far could you see either side go in the All-Ireland club scene, and could you see them get through Munster and maybe go on a bit of a run, maybe win an All-Ireland, who knows?
But the thing is about Cork hurling teams, like we haven't won a club hurling championship since I think 04, 05. Newtown Chandler were the last team to do it, and it's a very, very hard thing to do. And it's funny because I was looking at the Munster club draw before it and see the Cork would come up against Limerick, and I'm just like, curtains, we're not going to beat the Limerick team. But I was thinking at that point it'll be Patrick's Well or the Piershick. Two sides. Well, Patrick's Well have the players, obviously, Cian Lynch, Dermot Burns and Aaron Gallan. The Piershick, I see them last year and they were superb in that final against Doon. And it came as a bit of a shock that Kilmallock won the whole thing, considering as well they lost their first game against the Piershick. And I thought this team is well past it. You even look at their players. I suppose their star player, I've heard a lot about O'Shea O'Reilly, their quarter forward. And I was chatting to some Limerick fan, and he was saying he'd destroy Robert Downey if the Glen got to the Munster Club Championship. But if the Glen got there, I'd probably fancy Kilmallock to get over the line because the Glen definitely have one player, and Kilmallock will be the kind of team to stop them. They are street smart, a bit like the Limerick County hurling team. But if Middleton get through, I think they could beat Kilmallock. I definitely think so. You look at the young players in that team. Cormac Bosang is an unknown quantity for defenders in Limerick. Conor Lee had people would have thought would be finished by now. Luke O'Farrell the same. And they'll be well up for this. So I think if Middleton get through, they'll beat Kilmallock. But then the final, you'll be coming up against who? Ballygunner, Ballyea, Lockmore, Castletown, or Turles Sarsfields. Like, they're four excellent club sides. And even Tony Kelly's coming back into fitness for Ballyea. Ballygunner have been absolutely outstanding in the Waterford Championship. Their problem is winning the Munster Championship, of course. And hurling, John McGrath is another player that is in the form of his life, and he could easily destroy Middleton. So I think the Cork teams I don't personally think they'll win a Munster Championship, but if it's Middleton to get through, I think they'll give it a right good go and go for Kilmallock or Tour de Stars or whoever they come up against.